Hello, my friend. Welcome to the Chronically Me podcast. I'm your host, Aimee Esther, and in today's episode, we are talking about money with chronic illness. Last week, we had part 1 where we talked about scarcity versus abundant mindset. I recommend listening to that part first before you head into this one because it's the foundation for what we're talking about today. Today, we're going to talk about when things are too expensive, when you're wasting money, and when you think you don't have enough money. So let's get started with today's episode. If you live chronically ill like me and are looking for more purpose, control, and joy in your life, then you are in the right place. This is the podcast that challenges your thinking around chronic illness so you can live the most amazing life despite extra challenges. Are you ready? Let's go. Hi, my friend. Welcome back. If you missed last week's episode, I would highly recommend listening to that one first. Let's talk about when we believe that things are too expensive. How often in your life with chronic illness do you think that's too expensive, or that was a waste of money, or I don't have enough money for that? I don't have enough money in general. I have too much debt in my life. How often have you had these thoughts, especially when you live chronically ill and you have medical bills and you have extra expenses? I have a crazy idea for you. Today, I want to convince you that those are not even a thing, that it is not even possible to have something be too expensive, that it is not even possible to waste your money, that it is not even possible to be in too much debt, that it is not even possible to not have enough money. I know that sounds crazy, but I need you to open your mind for me today, and I want to convince you of that truth. Okay, so I want to focus on two main things today. There's a lot of money mindset things we talked about, obviously, and a lot of ways we could go through this, but there's two that I really want to focus on because they're things that, one, I've struggled with a lot in my life and that my clients have brought up a ton. And of course, we will discuss more on another day. If there's a specific one, let me know in the comments on the YouTube video of this podcast. So the two main ones I want to focus on are, one, I don't have enough money, and two, this is too expensive. X, Y, or Z is too expensive. My medical bills are too expensive. Everything is too expensive. We have too much debt. I have too many medical bills. Those are kind of the two concepts I want to talk about. I don't have enough, and this thing or life is too expensive. So let's start with that's too expensive. Now, this is just a funny thing that we think. When you stop and think about it, it doesn't make any sense. This idea that something is too expensive, because every person in the world has a different idea of what is too expensive, what is too much money, or what is priced too high. I was talking to a friend recently and we were considering selling one of our cars, and I looked online and we could sell it for about $2,000. And I thought, that's great. That would totally increase our money. That would save us this much money every month on insurance. And that would be maybe a good idea because we don't use it very often. My husband, since COVID, has worked from home. And it's like, why do we have two cars? We don't really need them. Maybe we should sell one. And then if he ever goes back to the office, we can buy another one. And his car is, it only has a little bit of time left anyway. The car market has been doing well. So maybe we should just sell it right now. And as I was talking to a friend about this friend was telling me how they were trying to decide if they were going to buy this $70,000 car. And then they decided, you know what, let's instead buy a cheap car and buy a $40,000 car. And my mind was blown. I'm like, I'm considering selling this $2,000 car, and that feels like a lot of money to me. And for her, a $40,000 car seems like the cheap option. And to me, it was like blowing my mind, like a $40,000 on one car. Like, I've never spent that much in my life on one thing except my house. And I thought, that's crazy. But funny how, to me, that's expensive. And to her, that was the cheaper option, right? And isn't it funny how wherever we are with our mindset on money changes whether we think something is expensive or cheap. And it doesn't necessarily correlate to how much money you make. It really doesn't. There are people who spend a lot of money, a lot more than they actually make, And there are people who make a lot of money and don't spend very much. Someone that I follow on YouTube is Graham Stevens, and he always talks about saving money and the things he's done, and he makes so much money. He shares on YouTube. I think his YouTube ad revenue was around $4 million last year. And he saves so much money, and he gets stressed about paying for extra things. He said that he finally decided to hire someone to help edit his videos because it saved him some time. And that just seemed like the common sense thing to do when you are making $4 million a year. But for him, it was really hard for him. It was really expensive for him. It seemed like this big thing, even though he makes a lot of money. So it doesn't necessarily correlate to how much money you make. I think sometimes the more money people make, the more they think that things are less expensive. But it doesn't really matter the reason why. We all have a different idea of what's expensive, of what is a lot to spend on a car. What is too expensive for medical bills? What is too expensive for clothing? I like to buy secondhand stuff. I like to thrift the clothes, but my son has severe allergies to animals, and we found that when we thrifted his clothes, some of them had some animal things, I don't know, dander or whatever left on them. I tried washing them multiple times. Don't worry, I tried all the things, but anytime we bought him some used clothes, even though they seemed like they were in good condition, sometimes he would get rashes for them, and I couldn't tell which things would give him a rash or not. So I started buying him brand new clothes. And I thought, oh my gosh, Target is so expensive to buy clothes. And I'm talking to a friend, and she's like, oh, I always buy at Target because it's super cheap there. And it feels expensive to me because I usually spend, X amount of dollars on clothes. For me, anything over $10, even over $5 for my kids, and $10 for me is like, that's too much to spend on a clothing item. And yet I have a lot of people in my life who spend a lot more on clothes. But then they look at me and they're like, you spent $5,000 on your bed? Are you kidding me? We got a bed hand-me-down and we love it. It works just fine. Or we bought the small one and whatever. It's totally fine to them. And then they think other things that I buy are more expensive. And I'm thinking that was the best $5,000 ever spent. I sleep so much better in this $5,000 bed than I did in my crappy, cheap bed, which I consider cheap and some people would consider spending a lot of money on. And we all have different ideas of what's expensive and what things we're willing to spend more money on and what things we're willing to be cheaper on. And what does that even mean? Like, what does expensive even mean? Really, think about it. Because even if we all agree, like, oh, milk is super expensive right now because of inflation, like, maybe in 20 years from now, we're going to look back and be like, wow, milk was so cheap in 2022. I wish that it was still that cheap, right? It just depends on the way you're thinking about it. And we think differently about what is, quote, expensive based on what we are buying. And it's so fascinating. So the other day I was looking for a blow-up jump house for my son for his birthday. And I thought this would be so fun. And I looked it up and I was like, it's $150. No way I'm paying $150 for a blow-up bounce house, even though it would entertain my kids all day and probably totally be worth it. But at the time, like, that's way, way too expensive. I would never spend that much money on this. But then recently we purchased an oven. Our oven died, our stovetop part of our oven died. And so we decided to buy a new one. And we found one we really liked. It had a lot of the features we liked, but we really wanted a gas range because my husband's gotten really into cooking. And so we thought, you know what, maybe we should get the gas range. Well, how much more is it? And it was $150 more than the electric range. And I remember thinking like, oh, $150, that's totally worth it. Like, we don't need to save $150 on this oven. Let's definitely spend that and get the one that we really want. And isn't it funny that that's the exact same amount of money, $150, that I thought was too expensive to pay for this blow-up house for my kid, but wasn't too expensive to add on to how much I was already spending on this oven. And our brains do this, right? They change what we think is, quote, expensive based on like how much we are spending at that time or what we are buying, even though it's the exact same dollar amount. If I had instead of bought that range, bought the $150 cheaper one and then bought my kid the jump house, we would have spent the same amount of money. And yet it felt like no big deal to spend an extra $150 on a stove as it did to spend an extra $150 on a toy. How interesting is that? And I know you've done this before. I know you have. Think about this in your own life. Another time I think things are too expensive is my utility bills. I'll see the power bill come in like, oh my gosh, can't believe we have to pay this much for the power? Are you kidding me? But last summer we went to a lake house and it had no air conditioning. And I was so miserable the whole time. And I got home and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful for air conditioning. What would I do without it? And my husband and I were talking about how for so long people didn't have that. People just lived like that and their bodies probably adapted to it and they, obviously could handle it a lot better than I could, but still like I could not believe how grateful I was to have air conditioning. And then when I went to pay my power bill that month, I was so grateful to pay it and I stopped thinking, wow, that's too expensive. Instead I thought, actually, I really do want to pay that. I really do want to pay that bill. And we can think that with anything, like with medical bills. We can get a surgery and then think, wow, I'm so grateful that we have surgeons that could fix this problem that I have or attempt to fix this problem that I have. I'm so grateful that somebody's willing to do that because I would never be willing to cut someone open or to try that. Like the first surgeon, can you imagine how scary that would be? The first person to cut somebody open and see, I'm going to see if I can take this gallbladder out. I'm going to see if I can fix your bowels or whatever is going on in there. I'm going to see if I can fix it. And wow, I'm so grateful I get to pay for that because I live in a world where that is available. I live in a world where somebody is willing to do that for me, where someone's willing to get the education needed to do that because I sure don't have the education. Anybody that I know in my immediate family and my friends don't have the education to do that. Aren't I grateful that I get to pay for that instead of thinking, wow, that is so expensive. But what about when we have a medical bill that didn't actually help? Like, I actually did get my gallbladder out and it did not help anything. And I went to many doctors for years and years and had tests and all the things done and nothing got better. And it didn't seem to help me. And so a lot of times I think about that. I'm like, oh, if I just hadn't have gone to all those doctors or I hadn't have, went to the ones that I did or I hadn't got that test, like it wasn't even helpful. So I shouldn't have done that. It was way too expensive for something that didn't help. They shouldn't make me pay for it unless it actually helps me, right? Like they have all these thoughts like that. So it might be easy to see when you do actually get the help that, hey, I don't have to believe that this is too expensive. I can actually want to pay this off. I can actually want to pay this power bill because I actually do want air conditioning. I could actually want to pay that surgeon because that surgery did help me and I'm so grateful for it. But when it doesn't help you, can you still believe that it's not too expensive, that it wasn't a, quote, waste of money? What if, this is a crazy idea, my friend, and I need you to open your mind, okay? What if there was actually no such thing as something being too expensive? What if there was no such thing as, quote, a waste of money? What if that wasn't even possible? What if it wasn't possible to waste money? I think I do this a lot where I buy a meal at a restaurant and then I think, well, I have to finish it because I don't want to waste my money. It was too expensive, so I don't want to waste my money on this and not finish it, even though I have this super bad stomach ache. I don't want to waste my money on leaving the movie early, even though I have a migraine during the movie. I don't want to leave this event even though I feel super sick or even though my kids are freaking out. I'm not going to leave and waste my money because it was, quote, too expensive or it was just a waste of money. But isn't it funny that then we're just making ourselves miserable for the same amount of money? Like if I paid $10 to get into a movie and then I got a really bad migraine, it doesn't cost me any more money to leave the movie. It doesn't cost me any more money to stay at the movie. So why am I staying and making myself miserable? It's not a waste of money. In fact, would I rather spend the same amount of money and feel better than have that pain prolonged? Or would I rather leave the event with my screaming kids than try to prolong it and be miserable the whole time I'm there just to tell myself that I didn't, quote, waste my money? What if it wasn't a waste at all? What if it was exactly where I needed to spend my money? What if it wasn't too expensive? Maybe. I mean, it's totally possible to still believe that something's not too expensive or is not a waste of money, even if it wasn't helpful, even if you left after 5 minutes. Well, good thing I went, because now I know that a migraine was coming on and now I can take care of it, and I don't have to deal with the after effects if I would have done something else, right? Like, I can still believe that it was the right choice with my money, or believe that it wasn't too much money to spend on my health, thousands and thousands of dollars that I've spent on my health that seem to, quote, do nothing to help me. It's like, wait a second, what if I believed that that wasn't too expensive, that was exactly the money I needed to spend? Then guess what? I find evidence that it's true. I find evidence that, hey, wait a second, if I hadn't have gone through all of that, I wouldn't have been able to figure out that I had POTS, because I wouldn't have been tested for everything else. I would have kept searching the internet and been like, oh, do I have lupus? Do I have this autoimmune disease? Do I have cancer? Do I have whatever? I would have gone crazy searching and trying to figure out what it is by not getting tested for things. But by getting tested for things that came up negative, I was able to be led to the right place. Or by trying treatments that didn't work, I was able to be led to things that did, even if we haven't found them yet. Even if I don't know yet the right diet for me, aren't I grateful I tried all of those diets before? No, they weren't waste of time or waste of money to spend on that diet or that lifestyle plan or whatever it is I did. It wasn't a waste of money because it led me to now. And now I know that doesn't work. Check that off the list. I'm going to move to something else. And it wasn't too expensive. It wasn't too much money unless I decide it is. Like, what if that was exactly how I was supposed to spend my money, so that now I can figure out how to budget better? Now I can be better with what I choose to do and what I choose not to do, what doctors I go to and what I don't. Now I understand insurance a whole lot better than I did when I got started. Now I understand how doctors price things a whole lot better than when I started. It wasn't too expensive. It was exactly the price that it needed to be, and I can believe that if I want to. I really can. What if it wasn't even possible for something to be too expensive? What if it wasn't even possible to waste money? What if that was not even a thing? If it's not possible for something to be too expensive or to waste your money, then it also is not possible to not have enough money. Did you know that you could believe that that's not even a thing? That it is not even possible to not have enough money, or it's not even possible to be in too much debt, or it's not even possible to not have enough to pay your bills, or it's not even possible to just not have enough in general. What if that wasn't even a thing? I know, it's crazy. And I know you're thinking, Aimee, you don't know my life. Definitely, it is possible. I can show you all the evidence. Well, let's talk about it. Open your mind. Let's think about if it were possible. Let's just consider the idea that maybe it is. Maybe that's just something that the world has taught us. Maybe that's just something your parents taught you. Maybe that's just something that people say on the internet. Maybe you do have enough and you always have enough and you're never in too much debt. And what if that was true? And again, if you haven't listened to the scarcity versus abundance mindset episode last week, I highly recommend that. But I really, truly do believe that it is not possible to not have enough money. And the way that I know this, I have actual proof, you guys. I do have proof. And my proof is most people in the world think they don't have enough money. Even people who, what I look at, seem like they make a ton of money. I have heard so many people who make millions of dollars a year say they want to make more. I was listening to a podcast by Brooke Castillo, and she was talking about how she made $1 million in her business, and then she made $5 million and $10 million, and her goal now is to make $100 million in a year. It's never going to be enough. Because as soon as you hit one milestone, you're looking towards the next. If you're making $20,000 a year, you're thinking, I just wish I was making $30,000. And when you're making 30, you're just thinking, wow, I just wish I was making $40,000. Wow, I just wish I was making 60 or 80 or 100. And once you make 100, you're thinking, I wish I was making 200. And sometimes I think that people can set goals and they make 100,000. I think I want to set a goal to make 200,000. And I think it's totally fine and amazing to set goals as long as you're coming from abundance and not from scarcity and not from, well, this isn't enough. This isn't enough to pay my bills. This isn't enough to do what I want to do. This isn't enough to provide for my family. When we're coming from that mindset, then I don't think it's helpful to think, I wish that I had more money. But if it's just, hey, making money is fun. I enjoy making money. I think it would be fun to make $100 million a year. And that is, I think, how Brooke Castillo sees it. When I listened to her podcast, she did seem to be very much an abundance mindset. But it still is funny that it isn't enough for her brain, right? It isn't enough to make more. And she's a life coach. She is big into mindset and how your thoughts control your world and all of that. But she still is always trying to do more. She's always trying to make more money. And I've just heard way too many people who, in my mind, make enough money, make a lot of money, make excess money, think, well, it's not enough. I wish it was more. I'll be happy when I make $1 million. I'll be happy when I make $100 million, right? Like, it's never going to be enough because there's always more to be made. There's always more to have in your bank account. And I just don't think that it's useful to think I don't have enough money. I don't think that that's ever useful to think. I think the only thing that's useful to think is I can make more money. I do have enough, or I will have enough for what I need. I will have enough for what I want. I will have enough is much more useful than I don't have enough. Because I've seen in my own life where my husband first got his salary job and it just seemed like so much money, more than we'd ever made in our lives. And then a few months in, we're like, oh, wait, all this stuff costs money. And wouldn't it be better if we had this much money, if you made this much money instead? And then a few years later, we're making that much money. And then I'm thinking, well, I wish we made that much money instead, right? Like every time we get a raise or we increase our bank account, I am excited for a few minutes, and then a week or two pass, a month pass, and I get used to it, and then I think, yeah, but wouldn't it be better if we made like a little bit more? And then I look back and see like, wow, we make way more than we did a few years ago, and yet why is my brain still telling me it's not enough? Why is my brain still saying, well, it's great, but wouldn't it be better if we made this much? Well, inflation's going up, so it should be this much, or groceries are going up, or my housing expenses are going up. Like, it's never going to be enough. And you may be thinking, well, I actually don't have enough money in my bank account to pay my bills. So let's say you have $1,000 and your bills that came in this month were $5,000. You literally don't have enough dollar bills in your bank account to pay for the bills that you owe. Is it still possible to believe that you do have enough, or you could have enough? Yes. Yes, it is. And in those situations, I do think it is very difficult to believe I have enough right now today. Like, I think it is 100% possible to believe that, but I don't think it's very easy to do. So as much as I'd love to coach you on that, I will, and we can work on that. I think it is hard to get there. And so in those situations, I like to think I don't have enough yet. I will have enough, but right now I don't. And you want to know what that thought leads to? is what are my options? If I believe I don't have enough yet, but I will have enough, that leads me to think about different options that I could try to make that money or to pay it off or to get that bill down or to borrow money. Like, it gives me all these ideas of like, okay, so I could sell my house. I could use equity in my house to pay for this bill, and then I could save the rest, and I could either buy a smaller house or I could rent, or maybe I don't have equity in my house. Okay, that's not an option, but maybe I could move out of my rental into a cheaper place. Maybe I could sell some stuff on eBay. Okay, maybe I don't have anything to sell or I don't want to sell anything. Well, guess what? I still have options. I can call the hospital and I can say, hey, what are my options here? I don't have $5,000 for this bill right now. What are my options moving forward? Or I could call my boss and say, hey, I had this big bill come up. I've been trying really hard to make my ends meet. Is there a chance I could get an advance on my paycheck? Or can I go into debt in order to pay this bill off? Can I ask friends and family for help? Can I create a GoFundMe? Can I go door to door selling something? Can I do X, Y, or Z to make more money? Or can I do X, Y, or Z to decrease the amount that I owe? When we believe that we just don't have enough yet, then we look for options in order to make that happen. And if we have to go into debt for it, then guess what? If we believe, well, I just don't have enough yet, but I know I'm going to, then we put in the work to pay that debt off. We put in the work to do what we need to do in order to have enough. We think about what our options are. Even if you live chronically ill and you're like, I can't get out of bed, I can't do anything. When you believe, okay, I will have enough, you will still be able to find options that work for you. I know. It seems like, well, my situation is different. My situation is unique. My situation is different than everybody else. We all have different situations. And yet when we come from an abundant mindset of I will have enough, I do have enough, then we actually take the action to get there. I know it sounds crazy, but when you truly believe it, I promise you, it will lead to massive action. Massive. Because anytime we think, well, I don't have enough money, I have too much debt, I have too many medical bills, I have this and this and this, I'm not able to work, whatever, then we are back into scarcity mindset, as we talked about last week. When we are in scarcity mindset, that is when we don't take action, or we take action that doesn't help our money, that doesn't help our situation, because we're believing that it's not possible to make enough money. If you don't believe it's possible, you will never take the action to do it. Even if you can't fully get there, what if you just believed it's possible, I don't have enough money yet? It's possible that I will have the money that I need. It is possible that I will have exactly what I need. Whenever I think I don't have enough money, I have too many medical bills, I'll never be able to pay for them, I have too much debt, or I am never going to be able to get this thing that I want or this thing that I need. Whenever I go there, I go into scarcity and I cut off my options. I cut off my mind from being open to, hey, maybe there is a way for me to make money, even though I'm sick all the time. Hey, maybe there is a way for me to save on my medical bills. Hey, maybe there is a way for me to pay off this debt. Whenever we do that, we cut off our options. And I, for so long, have done that, where I just cut off all my options. And like, this is just how it is. I just have to live with less money than other people. Or I just have to live with these medical bills. Like, no, I can believe that I will have enough money, that I'm not in too much debt, that I have exactly what I need. I can believe that, and it creates amazing things for me. And we take massive action when we believe that our money is fun to make, when we believe that money is easy to make, when we believe that we will have enough, that we'll have exactly enough for what we need. When we believe that, amazing things happen in our lives. And I know you don't trust me right now, but just give it a try, because I promise you, my husband and I had felt for so long like we weren't in control of our money, like it was in control of us. And even though every month something big comes up, I go to the emergency room, or we end up having a car problem or whatever, something always comes up, and we're making the same amount of money. We're spending a lot of the same money, honestly, on groceries and our weekly stuff. And yet we are in control of our money now. We have full control of it. We know where the pennies are going. We know what we're saving for. And when something unexpected comes up, we still believe we will have enough to pay for it. And then we take the action to get there, even if it means maybe you have to go into debt for a little bit. Maybe it even means you have to ask for help. Maybe it means that you have to work more and hurt your physical health a little bit in order to pay some bills. That might be a possibility, but we can believe that we have enough. So what if we lived from an abundant mindset instead of scarcity, even when it came to debt, even when it came to a negative number in our bank account? What if we still believed that we will have enough money, or that we do have enough money? It is so much easier to pay off your debt when you come from a healthy relationship with money. It's so much easier, because really money is just a number that somebody made up. Like, we don't even really carry cash anymore these days. It's just like a number in your bank account. And maybe it's positive, maybe it's negative, but literally it's just a number. We're just like moving around numbers. That's what paying for stuff is these days, is moving around numbers. And before that, when we had cash, it was just handing people pieces of paper back and forth, and coins back and forth, little circles. We're just handing someone a circle and a rectangle. That's all it is. Like, it doesn't have to be scary, right? It doesn't have to be so overwhelming. And I think we put so much weight on money because it just seems like money runs the world, and money is the reason that we have and don't have things. And money, it just seems like it creates opportunity and it creates all these things. And it can, and you can give so much more, and you can do more when you have more numbers in your bank account. But that's all it is numbers in your bank account. And it is not what's creating the good or bad life that you have right now. It really isn't. And we can still choose to believe that we are in the right situation right now. And with what my husband and I have gone through, we just decided that everything that we've done up until this point, the mistakes we've made with our money, the maybe things we wish we could go back and change, wish we could go back and tell our younger selves, the things that were out of our control with my medical bills and other things that came up, and these big things that seemed like they weighed so much on us, we can just believe that those were exactly as they were supposed to happen. For a while, I was thinking, man, I just wish I could go back in time. I would change this and this and this. And then I realized, because of all those things, because of making mistakes, because of having extra medical bills and extra things come up, I am now in a place where I am actively checking my money every week, where I'm actively learning how to budget. I'm listening to more budgeting podcasts. I'm learning more things about how money works, how to make money, how to save money, how to invest money. Like, now I am so invested in learning more about money from an abundant mindset, and I've learned so much that, wow, I actually don't want to go back in time, because I learned so much from all the experiences I had. Had I been able to go back in time and tell my younger self, Aimee, don't go out to eat so much. Don't buy this thing. Don't do this thing anymore. My younger self would be like, okay, older self Aimee, sure, you know what you're talking about. Like, she'd probably roll her eyes. And even if she tried to do those things, she wouldn't have the mindset to do it, because she hadn't have experienced what I've experienced of feeling really stressed about money and getting to a place where we're like, wait, are we going to be able to pay our bills this month? Are we going to be able to do this thing? Are we going to be able to pay this medical bill? Are we going to have to just cut out all of our fun money, which is what we have done recently? Like, okay, fun money's out. We got to really crack down on things. We got a, baby, we got 2 other kids. Like, this is hard, but aren't I grateful that it is so hard because it's taught me so much. And I can just believe that everything that's happened before this was because it's supposed to. And because it did happen, clearly it was supposed to happen. And had it not, I wouldn't have such a drive to change my mindset on money, right? And if I had not done that, it would be a lot harder to view the world that way. So what if this was part of my success story? I look at so many successful people and I hear their stories about when they hit rock bottom. I have heard so many people who I view as so successful, having so much money, hear them talk about their rock bottom and the time that took them to a place of, wow, I really need to figure this out. Wow, I really need to work harder. Wow, I really need to take more action in my life. And when they were able to come from an abundance mindset and able to believe that I will be able to do this, I'll be able to make this much money that I want to make. And then years later, they become successful with that. And they become huge. And they become people who make a lot of money and have a lot of money. And I really do believe that so much of that comes from hitting rock bottom. It comes from hitting the hard part. Because when you go through that hard part, it teaches you so much and you learn how to become better, how to become successful. If you have a failed business, it helps you learn how to have a successful business. If you have no money, it helps you learn how to make money. As crazy as that sounds, it helps you to be able to push yourself, to be able to learn more, to be able to ask the right questions, to be able to hit a point where you're so desperate that you'll do anything. You'll go to people that you normally wouldn't go to ask for help. You look for resources you normally wouldn't look for because you've hit that rock bottom. And what I like to believe is, what if right now, today, is my rock bottom? Like, what if this was my point in my life where I talk about with my grandkids in 40 years from now, and I tell them the story of when I made a few mistakes with my money and I had all these medical bills that were really hard to pay for, and I didn't get to go on vacation, and we decided to cut out all of our extra fun spending money, and I didn't get to get my hair done, and I didn't get to buy any new clothes, and I didn't get to go out to the fun amusement parks with my kids. We had to get to a point where we were really strict with our money and we watched every penny, and we got into this habit of every Sunday looking through our finances. And we got into this habit of pushing ourselves to, how can we make more money this month? How can we save more money this month? And we learned so much in this time. And this was our rock bottom that we hit. And now look at us. We're super successful. And we were able to do X, Y, or Z thing. We were able to make this much money because we hit that rock bottom. I just like to believe that when I'm struggling, this is just my rock bottom story. This is just my part of my story that is going to be the most interesting. If you hear someone tell a story who is super successful about how they've been successful their whole lives, that is a boring story to listen to. When you hear somebody tell a success story about how they struggled and fought and they hit this point where everything seemed to be falling apart, but then they picked themselves up and it took a lot of time, but then they were able to finally hit that point where they could make money, and then it snowballed and they became successful. That is an interesting story to listen to. Nobody wants to hear a story where you just had money your whole life. Nobody wants to hear the story where you were successful your whole life. Nobody wants to hear the story where you had no health problems your whole life. We like to hear the stories of the hard and how we got through them. So what if you're hard right now, whether it was money or something else, just illness in general? What if this moment right now was your story, and it was the most interesting part of your story that you're going to tell your grandkids 40 years from now, or 20 years from now, or 10 years from now, or in the next life? You are using this moment right now as your story. This is the most exciting part of the story. When you hit rock bottom, when things are hard, when you had to learn something new. So what if it wasn't possible to waste money? What if it wasn't possible that something was too expensive? What if it wasn't possible to not have enough money? What if it wasn't possible to be in too much debt? What if that was part of your success story? What if that was part of the amazing things you've been through that made you the amazing person that you are? What if everything was priced exactly as it should be? What if you spent exactly what you should have up until this point, and it helped you learn a whole lot, and it helped you to become successful in the future? What if you're struggling right now with money, and it is part of the amazing story you're going to tell in a few years from now? It's possible, my friend. Let me know what you think. I know some of you probably will hate that I had said it's not possible to not have enough money, but hopefully somebody out there can take this into their lives and view their world just a little bit different. Please give me a review on your favorite podcast app, and I will see you on the next episode. Hey friend, do you find value in this podcast but want to take it to the next level? Work with me one-on-one or check out Chronically Me, the course and workbook. This course takes the things you are learning on the podcast and helps you apply them directly to your life. This course dives deeper into changing your thinking, teaching you how the brain works and how to maximize your life with chronic illness. I designed this course as a companion to the podcast. The podcast gives specific, real-world examples, and the course helps you put them into action. If you want personalized one-on-one help from me, I got you. I also offer individual coaching programs where we can talk about the problems you are facing. I'll help you manage your brain and find solutions to nearly every problem that you have. We will walk hand in hand on this journey together. Check the show notes or the video description on YouTube for more information on getting extra help from me. Talk to you soon.